We view traumatic brain injuries as some of the most serious injuries that people can have because of the dire effect it can have on a person's functioning, on their life, on their family. Because these TBIs, in many situations, these traumatic brain injuries almost effectively result in the death of the person that was there before, and now all we have is a shell of a person, a different person, living in the person's body that was injured by the traumatic brain injury. It's these injuries are no two are the same. Some people have good recoveries from these, but many people just never do. And we view each one of these cases when they come in as a serious, long-lasting case until we have evidence to the contrary, until we know the person is going to be one of those folks that recovers from the TBI, until we know that they're one of the folks that are going to recover from the concussion. We treat it as if they're not until we know that they are. It is something that we have to follow. We have to follow regularly to determine, is this something that's going to be a long-term impact on their family and on this particular person or not. The most tragic TBI cases, to me, are typically the ones in which I have somebody that was a high-functioning person before. And typically that means they're high-wage earners, they're folks that are used to operating at a very high level, they're used to multitasking, they're used to making all of the executive decisions that you have to make to not just run your life, but to make sure and do things like run companies or to run in large families and this sort of thing. All of the functions that have to happen, everybody that has to be coordinated and put together. Those folks are really the glue that hold our families together and they hold our companies together. When those folks get hurt, when those folks have a traumatic brain injury, it can be absolutely devastating, not only to the person, not only to their family, but sometimes to their entire community. It's critical for the lawyer to know that, to know their story. And when you have somebody that is high functioning like that, to know and understand that even a minor change in that person's ability to multitask, for instance, or have other executive functioning, any change like that can result in a devastating change on that person's family or on that person's company or on that person's ability to make a living. These subtleties, even the subtle changes, can cause extreme damages in these cases. So the lawyer has to be able to prove that. And at our firm, we teach that. We look for that. We have our paralegals and our lawyers understand that, and we make sure that they have additional education in those particular areas. And when dealing with people with traumatic brain injuries, to give them that grace that they need, because you know what, they don't function the way they did before. And we have to recognize when somebody calls and they're upset, and we may have answered the question a dozen times, but they call and they're agitated or they're upset. We have to understand, you know what, that is just part of dealing with this type of injury because they have a traumatic brain injury. As a law firm, we have to treat those people and their families with more grace than we would with another person that's just being ornery, that's just not being nice or civil or kind. If you're going to do this type of work, you've got to know and understand that the people that are victims of this type of injury are going to have episodes like that. There are going to be times that they're not pleasant to deal with. There are going to be times that they may call you and they may cuss you or whatever, and you have to let that roll off, and you have to recognize that they are hurting very badly and just don't know how to express it anymore. It's more than just the practice of personal injury law. It's where you've got to actually take that person and say, you know what, I'm going to care for you and I'm going to love you through this, and we're going to make sure that we take care of you. And it's a different mindset, and many law firms are simply not set up to deal with that. Many law firms are more what I'll call black and white, and they don't recognize all of this gray area that you have to deal with folks that have a traumatic brain injury. And for those very same reasons, it's one of those areas that's most rewarding to deal with, because you take somebody who literally they could be living under a bridge If you do not do a good job for this person, and they're ornery and they're mean, and sometimes they may have compulsive disorders because of the brain injury, and you take them and you give them a chance at a decent life. You give their family a chance at a decent life. You make sure that their kids are able to go to school the way they would have been able to go to school before. It's very rewarding to know that you had that kind of impact on somebody's life. And TBI, in the traumatic brain injury world, that's one of the few areas that as a personal injury lawyer, you're absolutely positively going to have long-term effects on this particular person's life. It can be very rewarding, but it can be very difficult to deal with in the moment. It absolutely can be. But the lawyers and the law firm has to be aware of that and know that when they go in to take these kind of cases.